Hello, everybody. Welcome to a very special video here on the channel. Today, I'm going to show you how I edit and produce a podcast. This is something I've had an idea to do for a while, and I actually wanted to do it with the Robert Ashley episode of the Max Frequency podcast, but then I forgot to do it. So here I am with the next episode of the Max Frequency podcast with special guest Dustin Furman, executive producer over at Last Stand Media. And this actually made more sense. We talked about the nitty-gritty of producing shows, live shows, and running that side of a media company. And I've been wanting to do this for a long time. I think there's some value in just learning how other people edit, produce podcasts. My way is not the only way. It's a way I've been most comfortable with. I think the quality it produces is quite high and allows me to do a full, thorough edit of a podcast. So today I'm here to show you that process from the very beginning of the audio files that I have all the way to the finished podcast episode that will then be uploaded for all of you to listen. So if you'd like, you can listen to that episode and then you can see how I made the episode. So I thought that would be a really good way to kind of pair with this special episode that I did with Dustin. So let's dive right in, starting with file 0 from the very beginning. So let's go. All right. So here we are with the audio files. We're going to start from step 1, step 0, as it were. I guess step 1, 0. We're going to start with the audio files for the show and how I get them ready to put into my audio editor of choice, which is Logic Pro. So I've got an interesting setup, I think, of how I record my audio and my backups. And that kind of includes using the application Audio Hijack. I don't even think they go by Audio Hijack Pro anymore, but Audio Hijack, I use that. And it spits out some MP4 files. I'm recording in Apple compressed lossless. So that's the way I have my files. The file size is significantly smaller than, say, an equivalent wave, which is ironically what I'm going to convert this to use in Logic. Now, the reason I record an MP4 is simply to save space on my back end. I don't know why I was deleting that, but I rename the guest audio file to match my naming structure, which is totally fine. And then I'm going to use an application called Permute to do some conversion. And so for this episode, I think I actually need all the tracks because I think there was some talk with Dustin that wasn't on his end. We'll see. But I'm going to convert all 3 of those to a wave. And it doesn't take terribly long. Recording video might be hampering that, but we're done with that. So now I've got waves. And so later when I back this up and archive it, I can delete all these waves and still have that lossless quality preserved in a smaller file format. So it works out for me. But now we're going to, there's our Dustin backup. We're going to take these 3 files and we're going to run them through Isotope RX10. And so I've set up a custom kind of run module chain. I guess this was the technical term for it. But I've set up a chain to do some deplosives, declicks, and a voice denoise to kind of clean up some background sound. It's mostly tailored here, but generic run of just fixing these types of things with Isotope. So we'll run through that. We'll run through that and cut to the end here. Okay, so that took, all in all, while recording this video, I should say, about 15 minutes on an M1, just a plain old M1 iMac running Apple Silicon software. So take what you will. Normally, I'd be clicking around doing other show prep related things, but in the interest of the video, decided to just keep it simple and straight there. So we're done with isotope. And so now we have these 3 repair tracks. So now I'm going to match the volume on all these tracks. And this is the sole reason that I pay for Adobe Audition. If you have other recommendations for as efficient, fast, quality matching of loudness, let me know in the comments below. But this is what I do, which is I take my now repaired tracks, cleaned up, and I throw them in Audition, and then I drag them over into the match loudness setting here, and this is what I have it set to. Now, I pulled these exact settings from a Relay FM video by Stephen Hackett about how they equalize, or at least he does it when he edits a show. And I really liked it, and so it sounded good. They do it for a job, seemed like a good thing to match. So I'm just replicating those settings. I like the way it sounds. It keeps, for my ears, I think a very loud, decent level is about halfway on the volume. I don't want people blowing their ears out when they're listening to me. So anyway, I run this through and just match all of our loudness to these settings, -16 LUFS, LUFS. I don't even know what that stands for. It's something I would like to learn a bit more about. But matches all loudness, saves the file, doesn't take too long. So there we go. It's done. It brought Dustin up about a decibel. It brought the backup down about 3 decibels. And then I don't know why. I've never figured it out. I think I sound good in my shows and generally in my production. I mean, this is the type of setting you're listening to in this video. It always brings me up like 9 decibels. But when I'm talking into, my H6 Zoom and I'm around -12, so it seems like it's bringing me to 0. I don't know. It seems like a lot, but it sounds good to me, so I've never really questioned it all too much. So anyway, we're done with that. We can close Audition. We're done with it. Goodbye. We now have all these PKF files, which I just get rid of. They're generally fairly large. And now we have the audio. So I go in and color code them, so I know just in the sea of files which ones to pull, which specifically to grab. So Dustin here, he's going to be green. And then here's the whole call backup, which I use as a sync track. So that's why that's blue. This one can be blue and green because it's just a single backup of Dustin's voice without my audio at all. And I'm going to use some of that. There was some pre-show talk that I think I actually want to use as post-show, as kind of just a fun post-show little chit-chat, I think. I'm going to re-listen to the conversation and see how it goes. But we are now ready to work into Logic. The files are the way that I prefer them to be, all cleaned up, matched, ready to rock and roll. So we're going to go ahead and open up Logic, which I had minimized. I've got 2 templates, one for Chapter Select and one for Max Frequency Podcast. Should add a P to that. But anyway, I'm going to open up the Max Frequency one. And we can come in here. We can rename that to Dustin. And shrink that up a bit to match the height, I think. So now we're going to start dragging all the tracks in. I apologize. I'm usually not talking. So we've got me. We've got Dustin. We've got the call backup, and then just the Dustin backup. So we'll call this Dustin backup. Backup. We can give that a little height. Let's give you a darker shade of green. So an important thing to note about my process is my track and the backups are started and stopped at the exact same time. They are perfectly in sync the whole time. So I use that as a reference for when to line up my guests and then edit off of that. So it is essential to my workflow that these 3 tracks never go out of sync. So I'm always moving at least those 3 together. And so I always zoom in at the front just to make sure everything's lined up. Now, Dustin, as you can see, started recording a bit later than me, so I'm probably just going to drag him to the end. And then I'm going to go ahead and find the rough start of our show. And now if I was paying attention and did a good job, I should be able to see that we roughly started around 14 minutes. So I can just take my playhead there and zoom in and see what we got. I'm going to mute Dustin's track.
In probably.
Ooh, I'm going to mute it all.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Max Frequency. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Max Frequency.
So here we go. This is the start of the show. So now what I can do is find where Dustin first speaks. So we can bring in the backup
And media, Dustin Furman. Hi, Dustin. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on. I haven't.
Dustin, welcome to the show.
Okay, there you go. So this is where Dustin begins to speak, and so now we want to find that part in Dustin's track so that he can sound nice and clear. So he probably.
Oh. Yes. We are out of coffee at home.
Ooh. So this is the pre-show a little bit, I think, that I wanted to tag in. It's good that he's actually recorded this.
If you, dude, here. Yeah, it is. It's crazy. I like this level of research, I got to say. Inconsistent, you know? Oh, I was just there last night. Yeah. Dang. You know, I was thinking about going, and then I lightly talked to Colin about going, and then I don't back into it. I had a few people ask me before. Thank you for having me on. I haven't done a.
Okay, so here it is. This is Dustin talking in the intro, and so we were around 14 minutes or so, I think. So I think that was roughly it. So we can unmute that, and we're gonna.
This time, the executive producer. Show.
Thank you for having me on.
Now we're gonna get into Dustinception. So here's the rough sync process. So we know. This is by no means scientific. I would love Marco Arment's tool that he uses, which is very smart, much smarter than me. But this is going to be a good rough, really close visual and auditorial approximation. And if there's significant drift, probably not. But if there's enough of a drift, I'll go in and fix it and drag it and move it. But this is a good starting point, referential point for moving and slicing and dicing the audio.
Thank you for having me on.
Obviously, you're not going to hear the backup track. I'm actually going to mute it now, and we can go from there. So all of this is pre-show. I'm going to see where the coffee talk started to see if I even need this backup track of Dustin. So I'm going to kind of come in here and just see what's going on.
Well,
Please. Oh, yes. That would be super helpful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. That's a
you up. Take one more sip of my coffee, and we'll get going.
Dude, I'm out of coffee. We are out of coffee at home.
Pull you up. Take one more. That's a beautiful thing.
Boarding.
Beautiful. That's a beautiful thing. I'm going to clear the trash. Pull you up.
Okay. So here I'm trying to decide where I would want that conversation to start. Do I really need him asking if he needs to record? Conversationally, yes. I don't know. The question is, where do I want to start?
That's a beautiful thing. I'm going to clear the trash.
See, that's not necessary.
Pull you up. Take one more sip of my coffee and pull you up.
But see, this feels like too hard of a cut to jump into a conversation. So,
okay, I'm recording.
I might just pull it straight from here. The rest of our conversation, I honestly don't remember a ton. There's probably a little bit of pre-show, whatever. But maybe talking a little bit about like chapter select, Resident Evil, things like that. But this is definitely the part of the conversation I wanted to specifically probably move to the end. So now that we're all synced up, ready to rock and roll, it's time to strip the silence. So if I just come in here and I can Control X, these parameters, once again pulled from Stephen Hackett, I still have a Post-it note on my desk over here in case I forget these, but it's pretty ingrained in my mind. And basically, this is going to go through and pull the silence and splice it up into a bunch of little sections. Yes, I would like that. So now my audio track is just cut into a million tiny different little pieces. And so I'm going to do the same thing for Dustin's track, the backup track, and we'll throw in Dustin's backup too, which should actually be kind of a rough approximation match of what's above. So now everything is synced, cut, and now it's ready just to be listened through and edited and moved back and forth. So I'm going to move over here to, I don't even know what this menu's called, list editors page. And this is where I do all my chapters, chapter titles and things like that. And we're going to come in here and edit the show. So I know that we're going to start our conversation with Dustin saying that he's recording now. So we can use that to kind of just delete all of that talk. Now we want to find the beginning of the show, which is around here somewhere.
Hello, everybody.
Perfect. I'm not going to need that, so we can delete those. And so I'm going to take this. That's a good. Free up some of the end here, making my life easier. And just plop that here at the end at a big enough gap so that I visually know, hey, don't forget to address this audio, but this is the start of the show. And I generally like to start with the beginning of a show edit. So if you just hit Shift F in Logic, that grabs the track you've selected and everything past it. So grab the first thing and move it all down. So apparently all of our audio combined together is 984 little pieces. And we're just going to put it right there. So generally at this point, I like to save, this is, I've lost some work before and had to resync things and it's never fun. So I like to come in and just save the Logic project and get to work. So we always start the show with a welcome. That's always the first chapter. Generally is a minute or so, and then we dive into the first topic. So I'm going to start just trucking along, editing, and explaining this process. But first, I'm going to finish this cup of coffee before it gets too cold, and maybe address the cough a little bit because it's driving me bananas. I'm sure it's not super pleasant for you either, and I apologize profusely. All right, I'm back. I'm feeling better. Let's get started with the edit. So I do a full listen on the whole show, and I just go back, trim, slice, remove breath sounds or little clicks of the tongue that may have slipped through, and just clean up the show as best I can. So let's get started.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Max Frequency Podcast. I'm your host, Max Roberts, and joining me this time, the executive producer of Last Stand Media, Dustin Furman. Hi, Dustin. Welcome to the show. After the live show, and it actually timed pretty well because back in November, you, myself, and Logan recorded our Resident Evil 4 episode for Chapter Select.
So right here. So this is a good example of something I do. So I build out show notes for the podcast, full show notes. I do that in Craft lately. Was doing it in just the WordPress backend, but now I'm building things out in Craft. And so the first thing that I'm going to want to link this episode is our episode about Resident Evil 4. So I'm going to, oh, geez. Chapter select, season 5, episode 5. So I build that out with this. So here's our notes. And so I do this while editing. This inflates my general edit times, but it means that, I don't know, this is the way I work. My brain works that way. So I'm going to click my way. This is something I have to fix. Okay. See, look, you find all sorts of stuff that you got to fix. So we'll just go to the homepage. It can't be that far back. Says the man who wrote a bunch of reviews and articles since... Oh, geez. Here we go. Found it. Okay. So we open up Craft. Bam. So there we go. So I know that's where I want that. And so I just put the chapter title and then a bullet in the order that we talk about. So that is something, obviously I'm advertising, but we talked about it. And if someone's interested in our discussion about Resident Evil 4, now you have a resource for it. So
The original Resident Evil 4. So, and that came out at the beginning of March, right after your live show. So I kind of just used that as the timing to invite you onto this show. So thank you so much for coming. I now have 2/3 of the Sacred Symbols crew in the back catalog of Max Frequency. Colin was
Nice.
last year, and I think, was it last year? Yeah, it was last year. It's, time means nothing after you have a baby.
Oh yeah.
It blows your mind.
So the Colin episode, another thing that I would want to link to. I know this one's not terribly far back. I guess it's getting further back. Recording a lot of stuff, but here we go. Here's a growing of individual power. So, I'm just gonna take that. I'm gonna paste that. What number is this? 16. So I'll just do. There you go.
So now I just have to get Chris, maybe after he fights Froggy Fresh.
Right. It's
Oh
coming
my
up.
gosh. I'm going to that. I'm going to go.
Oh, you're going. Nice.
Yeah, I heard about it, and the fact that he is fighting Froggy Fresh, who I do know as Krispy Kreme from The Baddest, way back in high school, I was like, that's just too wild to not go see
Yeah.
in person. But
Oh, a lot of notes actually here in the welcome chapter, but that's fine. That's all good. So let's do this.
no one wanted to go with me, so I'm going by myself.
Dang.
It'll
You
be
know,
fun though.
I was thinking about going. Dang.
It'll
you
be
know,
fun though.
I was thinking about going, and
Sure.
then I
So here we go.
Self.
So that's kind of a false start. I do that a lot personally. So I just come in here. I'm hitting down command and it gives me these crosshairs. Then I can drag and delete stuff. And actually, I'm going to delete that. So he does a little bit of a false start there. So I'm just going to take that, use my trusty Shift F, and so his little breath there. Let's cut that out.
I was thinking about going, and then I was kind of waiting to see, and then I was kind of.
I feel like we can remove that one. Kind of missed that track there, but bring that over. So that does a natural crossfade and fixes that. I think that, yeah, drag is X.
And I was kind of waiting to see going, and then I was.
Are we so bold as to remove this one? Sometimes it's just you got to listen to it, feel it out. So I'm going to bite into the end of his words there.
Going, and then I was kind of waiting to see if someone was going to make the move. So I don't know.
I think sounds
have
good.
no plans to be there right now, but I wouldn't be opposed to going.
Speaking of about it,
So there's a long-ish pause there. We don't need my ugh. So let's just come down. Just get rid of all of my breathy sounds. Bring this down and clip it.
I'm
here.
excited
Definitely.
about it.
But speaking of, we're going to remove the butt too. We're going to remove the butt because I don't need it. we're just going to use speaking of as the transition.
About it. Speaking of
Usually because I'm
Thursday.
for
Thursday night.
Yeah. Night
Thursday.
for
Thursday night.
Yeah.
We can clean that up. I kind of cut him off a little bit rude, but that happens in a conversation. So we can just bring him under, tighten that gap up. Honestly, you could probably drag me in a bit.
There last night.
Thursday. Thursday night.
Thursday night is the Chippers night. Usually because I'm
Do we need me saying Thursday twice?
last night.
Thursday. Thursday night.
We don't need me doing that. So we're going to come in and clean that up.
Last night.
Thursday.
Thursday night is
Push that back a bit.
last night.
Thursday.
Thursday night is the Chippers night. Usually because I'm
It's better.
usually after Sacred I'll try to quickly start getting started on it. And so then
We can get rid of that. That one's like just a big gap. So I just did one right there. And tighten that up.
on it. And so then my wife Holly will get home.
They skimp on the chips in the bag. There's not a lot of chips they give you.
Okay, so here's another thing that I do is I write down possible show or episode titles. Pull a quote from it. This is something I learned way back actually with Show Me Your News. They would take some sort of quote and that would be the title of the episode or some sort of theme or thing with it. And then Relay FM does that with their shows for the most part. So does ATP. They just pick a title from the conversation. I think it's good. It gives insight to what the episode's about, and it can be funny sometimes. And so what I just heard, skimping on the chips, I think it was something like that.
So I feel like their chips are pretty. They skimp on the chips in the bag.
Skimp on the chips. So realistically, that's not going to be the title. But it's funny. We said it. I'll write it in there. It gets the title ideas flowing as I'm listening back to the show.
There's not a lot of chips they give you.
The
At least
chips
down
are
here.
inconsistent.
Yeah.
You know,
They sit on that
sometimes
bag
you
up
get too
there.
little.
Yeah. You need more
I've
chips.
had some chips that were horrible.
Me talking, him talking, it's not jiving. It just sounds kind of like an attack in the ears. And so I'm going to remove me, I think, because Dustin just talks, and Dustin's the guest, and I want people to hear Dustin. That's what they're here for, right? I mean, maybe they're here for me, but odds are they're here for Dustin. So I want people to hear him. Remove the crosstalk, space it out. What I'm saying isn't important to like artificially space the conversation, give it time to breathe. So let's clean it up.
Consistent.
Yeah.
You know,
They sit on that
sometimes
bag
you
up
get too
there.
little.
It is true. The chips do sit on that bag on the shelf up there. It's just terrible.
You know, sometimes you get too little.
You need more
I've
chips.
had some chips that were horrible.
So I actually like what I say there. Sometimes you need more chips. Not that it's a great insight or a great line, but I think it's a good end cap to what he just said. And so I can take that and just space it out as if we never overlapped at all.
Too little.
You need more chips.
I've had some chips that were horrible.
I was doing so there's some breathing there, and I could just pull it out, leave the breath there, or trim it back. Because do you really want to hear me take a deep breath right into the microphone?
Over, I guess, when it comes to eating out. Oh, well.
What I can do is actually just kind of remove the breath altogether. That's not the part we want, and I can space that.
Guess when it comes to eating out. Oh, well.
I was doing research.
Oh, well.
So the breath would be a natural transition sound. This sounds like a cut, and it is a cut. So let's hear it with the breath, I guess. Just stretch that out.
Oh, well.
It's just like a gross sound. Like, do you really want to hear me breathe? I don't think you do. So we're going to embrace the cut sound nature of it. And just space it out a bit. This is definitely the next chapter. I think this is producer start. Now that's not going to be the title. I'll find it as we discuss. But it's a
I
good
was
start.
doing research because, like you said, you were like, let's just do it this week. So
So, this is something I do quite often. I will just throw a random marker down to if I'm backtracking or going ahead, but usually it's backtracking. I'll throw a random marker down to know exactly where I stopped as forward progression goes, because I'm going to go look for a specific quote or statement from Dustin, and I just need to remember where I left off, and a marker is a great way to do that. So here's a good example of drift. So we can see that Dustin starts talking like a little bit before the sync track. And so now that I'm trimming out an now is a good time to realign. The drift hasn't been so bad that it's noticeable in the listening of the conversation, but this is a good time just to reassess, realign, and continue moving forward. So all I do, trim that out. I'm going to unmute the backup track. I'm going to line up my marker. And if you hit Control-Shift-F, you'll select everything forward from this point in this track alone. So now all of Dustin's future audio is lined up. And now I can just drag until I feel like we're synced.
At least.
And that's comfortable enough for me. You know, we could get really nitty-gritty down to it. And there's probably tools out there to help better with this type of alignment. But it's just a soft touch to the ear. We've cleaned it up. Now I can come in here and trim that just so when I select, we're definitely picking Dustin's track and moving forward with it. And then I can move forward with the edit as I was going. Okay, I'm back. Full, fat, happy, ready to keep up, continue this edit. So we're about over a third, but not quite half, if you can see here. And so as you've been able to see here, you know, depending on how I guess I edited this video, but as you've been able to see, just going along, re-listening to the whole thing, sliding, adjusting, moving, and removing as I see fit. I think the most important lesson in making and editing a podcast is the editor has final say. So it's really up to the editor's ear how it goes. Now, a director, a host could come in and say, I want the show to be like this, and then the editor can follow that. But when it comes down to the final say, it's in the editor's hands, and there's got to be trust there. Now, it's easy when I'm the creator, producer, host, editor, the whole thing, right, of the show. It all just goes through my brain. But sometimes there's multiple people involved, and you have to work together. But in the end, it comes down to the editor. So I'm just going to keep going and feel how we are. I think we just recently started the live show chapter, so that'll be a bit. That'll be an interesting conversation for sure, and then we'll go on from there. But we'll just keep trucking along.
now we can get started for real.
Let's do it.
There we go. We did it. We've edited the show in its entirety, post-show included. I like to put a gap, just a little gap, as a little surprise, for listeners. But there we go. There's the full edit, sitting around just shy of an hour 45, longer episode of the Max Frequency Podcast. So now what I do is I definitely make sure I save the project, make sure the backup track is muted, which it usually is. Then I just select all, make sure my playhead is at the start, and then hit Command B to bounce the track. I do not know why the term is bounce, but we bounce the track as a wave. I'll throw in my underscore final, and that will export. And so now that the edit is done, the project is quote unquote complete, I will show you how I produce the final MP3, because I'm not giving out the full wave file. That's just too large, way too much for just a podcast about talking. So we're gonna take this wave file, throw it through its final steps to make it the MP3, and then the episode is done. Okay, so now that Logic has exported the wave file, we can see that right down here, just over a gigabyte, which is pretty normal. So now what I'm going to do is open an app on the Mac called Forecast. And this is what I use to turn it into an MP3. So I throw in my audio file. Oh, it doesn't recognize MFP. It only recognizes MF. So I've recently renamed the show files. So watch this. Throw MF25 in there. It's the Max Frequency Podcast. We can see the last episode I encoded was. That will replace the art. I got to pick a title, which I think is going to be Get Real Nitty Gritty with Dustin Furman. So just take copy. Get Real Gritty with Dustin Furman. So I don't have a description yet. I generally like to write that beforehand. That was not quite the thing I wanted to do. Copy. Minimize. I do not know why it doesn't open in this window. Maybe because I'm in a tab group or whatever. So Forecast lets you do a couple of things. It lets you implement specific chapter art, which actually I did want to do for this episode. There's this picture that I wanted to do. Dustin and Colin. There we go. What's the size of that? Let's go ahead and edit this to make it the size and specs that I want. I'm going to open up the image. 1500 by 1500. Resample that bad boy. It's honestly probably a bit more accurate. I'm going to do that because it looks better. Sorry for the inaccurate representation, Dustin. I'm going to do 99% to just reduce that size. Delete, we don't need that. Ugh. Normally I put the max frequency watermark on these images, but because this is a personal picture of Dustin and Colin, this is not something that I made or shared or anything like that. I just put this here, and that'll be that chapter's art, because I just think that's sweet. Sweet thing. So we're going to do all that and a description. I'm going to come up with a description. Now, this could change before the final posting, but if you know, and if it does, at least this is an accurate description of what's in the show, and will be with the file. So when that's all said and done, I just go ahead and I hit one save and choose where to save it. Boom, bada bing, it's there and done. And close that out, and that's the podcast from audio file to end episode, the whole thing.
The next morning.
Hi, I'm back. Turns out that there's something else I want to do to this audio file. I was decided after I edited the show to go listen to that Small Town Mayor episode of Fireside Chats that Dustin mentioned. Just wanted to listen to it. And I heard a couple of the things that Dustin specifically talked about, like Colin remembering him, and him sitting there, while he and Ben spoke for this particular episode. And so I wanted to see if I could integrate those into the show. Take the listener to the spot that Dustin is talking about. Use audio as a means to put people in a sense of place. So I went out, I clipped those particular moments roughly around there. They're about 30 seconds each. And I thought we'd go back and try and integrate them in the show, which means I'm going to have to export everything again and do it all over, which I'm fine to do, but I wanted to give it a shot. So let's go ahead and work through that process, shall we? I'm going to download these little movie files. So this is, we'll do Colin memory. Jeez, I'm a terrible typist. Colin memory. And the other one, we will call it Dustin Floor. Spelled column. Okay. So those files are there. We can take that out of craft. We're going to use permute again to turn these. I got to fix that. It'll drive me nuts. Sometimes I'm a visual typist. Sometimes I'm a feel. It's all very bad. We're going to convert these to waves. We're just going to hit go. And those will plop up here. Create new tracks. There we go. They're now in our project. So obviously I don't have it marked specifically where these moments were. So I used my transcription software, Mac Whisper, which uses the Whisper model from OpenAI. So I took that and where is it? Oh, there we go. Created a transcript, and I just searched for the word remember because I recall that being a word that was used. So I found the section that it is. Basically, I went along with Ben to go to Colin's house to record. So I remember that, and that's in the Journey to Last Stand section somewhere. So we're going to find it and figure it out. I'm just going to wing it, as it were.
I think around this time.
I remember I started listening to Beyond around the time. Right, exactly. So fast forward to a lot of years later, I have a new gaming podcast, and I'm also working on my own gaming site with my friends Brandon and my friend Ben, who is now the associate producer of Last Stand Media. We're working on a site called Handsome Phantom, and we got accepted to E3, which was awesome. I was like, dude, we made it, even though we weren't getting a lot of listeners and there wasn't a ton of traffic to a site, but it was just legitimate enough that the ESA let us in. And so Ben at the time, this story is really wacky. Every time I tell it, I have to think like, this is not normal. Ben, that year or either the year prior, around then, had become the mayor of my hometown. So
you
some
helped
people
with the
may
campaign.
have heard. Right. Yeah. We had, I jokingly gave myself the title of his campaign manager, maybe not his campaign manager, but his time Colin was doing a show called Fireside Chats where he interviewed just overall interesting people, interesting scenarios, stuff like that. So Ben offered to him, he said, hey, I'm the mayor of a small town. I know that's the type of thing that might interest you. Let me know if you're interested. Colin said yes. So at E3, I basically went along with Ben to go to Colin's house for the recording. Colin was nice and was like, yeah, if you're interested. Colin said yes.
Okay. So we know the clips are here. That's kind of where I would use them or put them. I might put them back to back. We'll see how it goes. So this is Colin's memory, and this is Dustin on the floor. Dustin on the floor was earlier in the episode and would be the clip I would start with. So what we can do is solo this and find the specific part that I want to try and weave in.
Yeah.
So are you gonna go to the press conferences and everything?
Yeah, we should be at almost all the press conferences, if not all, and then we'll be at the actual show and everything, too.
How many
so.
E3s have you been to?
This is my first E3. I've been to a lot of other conferences and conventions.
Okay.
That's probably where I would start that.
How many
from.
E3s have you been to?
This is my first E3. I've been to a lot of other conferences and conventions.
Okay.
But this is my first show.
And you're joined by your friend Dustin now.
Conferences and conventions.
Okay.
But this is my first show.
And you're joined by your friend Dustin now. You Dustin, you're not mic'd, but you can just nod yes or no. Is this also your first E3? This is how many E3s have you been to? Second E3? Okay. I'm about to start a bunch of E3 coverage on SideQuest that by the time people hear this will have already been up.
Yeah.
I am so thrilled that I have to go to the show this year. Have you been to? Second E3? Okay.
I like that.
I'm about to start a bunch of E3 coverage on
Line.
SideQuest that by the time people hear this will have already been up.
Yeah.
I am so
I really like this Colin line. It's a very Colin thing to say, if that makes sense.
I am so thrilled that I have to go to the show this year. I'll be
I don't need any of that. We're just gonna trim that little bit out.
second E3? Okay. I am so thrilled that I have to go to the show this year. Second E3? Okay.
I'm gonna keep the though to help with the transition of the phrasing.
Who support her. I'm so jealous. Not that I didn't have people who cared about me and loved me and supported me. It's just that, I didn't feel like anybody was volunteering to give so much of their time, except for Dustin, of course. And so I was seriously kind of freaked out about that. Turned out it worked out fine, but.
And Dustin, I know you from somewhere, right?
Turned out it worked out fine, but.
And Dustin, I know you from somewhere, right? We've met. Okay. I feel like I know you from somewhere. I know you from somewhere. Okay, so I know you from somewhere.
So you can actually very faintly hear Dustin in the background of that. He actually says something there. So can we use that? Can we bring that up at all? I don't know what that would sound like.
And Dustin, I know you from somewhere, right? We've met. Okay.
Let's take it all the way up to 6. See what that even sounds like.
I know you from somewhere, right? We've met. Okay. I feel like I know you from somewhere. I know you. You from somewhere. I know you from.
Okay, so those don't do anything, but I think this one actually helps.
I know you from somewhere, right? We've met. Okay. I feel like.
Okay, I'm gonna keep that one, but the rest I'm okay with. So now we need to find where they fit here.
Let me know if you're interested. Colin said yes. So at E3, I basically went along with Ben to go to Colin's house for the recording. Colin was nice and was like, yeah, if you have someone with you, that's fine. Which it was just Ben and I at E3. So it was like either I go with him or I go and find a coffee shop for 3 hours and do nothing. So
Yeah.
that's the first time I met Colin in a more official and do nothing. So
Yeah.
that's the first.
That's actually a perfect transition point, I can insert the clip here and use that. So we're going to do that. Yeah. So we're going to, oh boy. So if you have the marker thing pulled down, it will move the chapters with it, which is vital when you're doing this kind of post work. Keeps everything in line with your chapter markers and stuff. Because I'm about to shift this all quite substantially. Bring this in. The thing is I know shortly after this.
That's the first time I met Colin in a more official capacity. And he actually remembered me that day, which was crazy. He's like, I don't know where I've met you before, but I have. Which is, now it's funny because when I meet people at events and stuff, don't know where I've met you before, but I have.
So this is the reveal. We might interject this part here. It feels weird to have kind of a double dose, but this spoils what Colin's about to say, or what Dustin's about to say. So, Dustin floor, that's actually, I wanted to keep that here with that. For this particular time warpy, we're taking you back, right? So I want to use a sound effect. I've got my little hearts in here. Here's chapter select car sounds. But harp transition 2 is what I like. For taking
Which is now
taking someone back. And so we're going to drag my trusty rusty harp transition in here as well. And we'll just put it up here.
for 3 hours and do nothing. So
Yeah. Sorry.
for 3 hours and do nothing. So
Yeah. Probably want that to start there.
so
Yeah.
How many E3s have you been to?
This is my first E3. I've been to a lot of other conferences and conventions.
Okay.
But this is my first show.
And you're joined by your friend Dustin. Now, you, Dustin, you're not mic'd, but is this your? Oh, you can just nod yes or no. Is this also your first E3? This is how many E3s have you been to? Second E3. Okay. I am so thrilled that I have to go to the show this year.
So now do I bring it back down or do I just put the memory in here? This is the editor story challenge decision making process. We're going to bring this over. Oh. Get reverse. Reverse. That's exactly what I wanted.
Thrilled that I have to go to the show this year.
that's the first
So thrilled that I have to go to the show this year.
that's the first time I met Colin in a more official capacity. And he actually remembered me that day, which was crazy. He's like, I don't know where I've met you before, but I have. Which official capacity.
We'll double check all these because that's off now.
And he actually remembered me that day, which was crazy. He's like, I don't know where I've met you before, but I have.
I wouldn't use a harp for that. I would just kind of put this here.
Where I've met you before, but I have.
And Dustin, I know you from somewhere, right? We've met. Okay. I feel like I know you from somewhere. I know you from somewhere.
Which is, now it's funny because when I
Let's hear the whole thing kind of structured together.
at E3, I basically went along with Ben to go to Colin's house for the recording. Colin was nice and was like, yeah, if you have someone with you, that's fine. Which it was just Ben and I at E3. So it was like either I go with him or I go and find a coffee shop for 3 hours and do nothing. So
Yeah.
How many
so.
E3s have you been to?
This is my first E3. I've been to a lot of other conferences and conventions.
Okay.
But this is my first show.
And you're joined by your friend Dustin. Now, Dustin, you're not mic'd, but is this you can just nod yes or no. Is this also your first E3? This is how many E3s have you been to? Second E3? Okay. I am so thrilled that I have to go to the show this year.
That's the first time I met Colin in a more official capacity. And he actually remembered me that day, which was crazy. He's like, I don't know where I've met you before, but I have.
And Dustin, I know you from somewhere, right? We've met?
We've met.
Okay.
A long time ago.
I feel like I know you from somewhere. I know you from somewhere.
Which is, now it's funny.
Perfect. That actually is really good. I'm going to throw my compressor on this. I have just a kind of a basic compressor that I whipped up. It honestly was my first attempt. I liked how it sounded, seemed to be okay, and so I haven't tweaked it. Probably not like audio engineer dreams, but so this now adds a little bit of texture, a little story, a place and time to the show that I think elevates it, even though it's only, what is it? You know, maybe a minute all in all of added time. Not even really. But I think it elevates the show a little bit. It gives people context. And I think that's valuable. So we're going to go back and, you know, check the show, check these timestamps, which should all still be good. I don't think anything's wrong with them. Go. All right, now we can get started for real.
Let's do it.
There we go. Everything's fixed, ready to rock and roll. And I think this is a good lesson that even when you hit export, it's not necessarily done. And you can always go back and tweak and fix up until it's published. And even then, you could go and upload a correction if needed. So I think thank you so much for watching and coming back with me to fix this, to add this little bit of extra magic to the show. Thank you so much for watching this behind-the-scenes look at how I edit and produce a podcast. It means a lot. I hope you learned something. You were able to take away something. If you have any improvements or suggestions or ideas or other resources that I can learn from, please share them in the comments. Let me know. I would greatly appreciate that. But thank you so much for your time today. You can check out all my writing over at maxfrequency.net, or you can follow me on Twitter at maxroberts143. Make sure, to subscribe here on the YouTube channel, see when new things go up. There's episodes of the Max Frequency podcast here, and there's also my other podcast, Chapter Select, which is also here on YouTube or wherever you find your podcast. But until next time, thank you all so much, and adios.